You are now entering what can only be described as a true free speech zone, where nothing is off limits and there is absolutely no censorship. Welcome to Open Mic with Boog Brand.
Well, I believe we are actually live now.
All right.
Yeah, I always make mistakes out of it, so we'll see what we actually get here.
No problem.
We'll get back to that. Got you up on stream. We're good to go. All right.
Wait.
So welcome to our 13th episode of Open Mic with Boog Brand. We are new enough to continue to screw it up, but we have been doing it long enough we shouldn't anymore. So, Scott, tonight you were my guest. For those who don't know, I think pretty much everybody in here is going to probably know you from your guest spots with Tundra Tactical. But you are Scott from PrecisionHolsters.com. Not only are you making some of the nicer holsters on the market, but you're doing it from behind enemy lines.
Yeah. I mean, we're in a pretty conservative area of California, but you're still in California. We're just outnumbered. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I know there's literally 3 or 4 cities in California that are enemy lines, and everything else is pretty conservative, but
Pretty much.
Doesn't stop you from being overrun.
Yeah, you're outnumbered, outvoted. So there's nothing you can do. But that's where the state of Jefferson initiative still is alive. It's not new. It's not like it started previous to World War II. So they've been trying to get that done for better part of 70 years. So
Yeah. Well, that'll probably be about as successful as Texas leaving the U.S. at this point.
Yeah, I imagine so. It's just they can't give up. The people that want to separate, they have all the water, so they can't afford to let us leave.
Yeah, you guys got all the water and most of the workers, so you lose a lot of taxes if they do that too. So.
Oh yeah. It's just basically anywhere outside of the city that it wants to leave, but it's the lower part of Oregon and basically everything north of San Francisco and California wants to break off into the state of Jefferson.
Yeah. Well, we could use a 51st state anytime soon, and I'm pretty sure Jefferson would be better than Puerto Rico. So.
Yeah,
Anyways, just want to do a quick rundown in chat, and not really much going on yet, but we got Lag Demon in saying first. Yes, I actually think you were first because I started the stream late. So Tony didn't come in, 3 days ahead of time and grab it up. But then Scott, you're in chat as well. So short crew tonight. They'll probably pick up a little bit later as things go on, but doesn't really matter. Just want to have a conversation anyways. So why don't you, for those who may tune in that don't really know what you do, what Precision Holsters does, you want to give them a quick rundown of what you got going on?
Yeah, it's not too expansive. It takes just a minute. So we make conceal carry holsters, hybrid and all Kydex. So we have basically it's outside the waistband, inside the waistband, and appendix style holsters, all meant for concealed carry, not duty. Concealed carry holsters, focusing on fundamentals and comfort. Function and comfort, really. And we also are now branching off into our competitive line, and that's starting to really pick up steam, and we're putting a lot of focus into that. And we also make belts, and that's it. Yeah, we're good to go. It's pretty easy. Yeah. We make holsters, man. That's what we do.
You know what? It's not bad, though. It's a good market. You guys do good work from what I've seen. I haven't got one yet. I'm just kind of waiting for the next pistol purchase because what I have right now, I'm not going to invest any more money into more holsters. I've got something I'm comfortable with at the moment, and it's definitely not ideal, but I'm a big dude, so
holsters can be so pain in the butt that it's like once you find one that even if it's not the best, people tend to stick with it. It's like,
Yeah.
okay, it's not the best, but I like it enough that it doesn't go into that box of holsters next to your bed or in
Yeah.
the closet that
Yep,
seem to
I'm
be.
lucky I don't have that. I kind of listened to a lot of people who knew what they were talking about from the get go, or I just completely don't know what a good holster feels like.
Well, and we do run into that a lot. You know, it's we might go, we might not be, we might be testing a new holster system, and John and I will get so deep into it, and we're like, okay, we'll do hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of draws out of it. Be like, okay, could we tweak this a little bit? Okay, maybe it's sticking a little bit at the beginning, but then it releases real nice. Okay, so is this a good way to have a compromise here? Do we compromise, or do we go try and iron out maybe this little detail, and then we'll send it to somebody else and be like, hey, test this for us, see what you think of it, so that we take ourselves out of the loop, so we're not getting into our own heads, because we'll get too OCD about it, and they'll come right back and say, oh, it's perfect, and we're like, but it's not, bro, it's not. They'll tell us the truth, like, no, it's perfect, best holster I've ever had. And we're like, yeah, but you don't know. A lot of the time we'll go, like, yeah, I don't know.
Right.
And sometimes people will come in and be like, oh no, I'm happy with my holster. And we're like, okay, show it to us. And it's nothing's set on it correctly. The retention's all scatterbrained. The hangers are half unscrewed, and they're like, see, it draws fine. And we're like, dude, what are you doing, man?
Yeah.
There's a, you don't know what you don't know type of thing going on there. And it's like, we get hyper focused in that one direction, but oh,
Yeah.
buddy,
Yeah, I
there's a
mean,
lot of,
I will say, like, I spent a lot of time tweaking the adjustments on the holster, getting everything set right. And then I'm finicky, and it's like, I hate these rubber bushings, so I'm going to take this rubber bushing. I measured the distance. Now I'm putting hard washers in there. I got it set to a specific width. It's not going anywhere. Red Loctite. Get it dialed in
yeah,
and leave it.
yeah. And we have seen a lot of people that they'll get their holster and then they'll adjust it, and then they think, well, I never have to adjust it again. And it's like, well, no, you adjusted it. That thing, the leather on it's going to move, even if it's all Kydex and there's nothing to really break in. Temperature changes can make things kind of move just a hair, and eventually that hardware is going to loosen up.
Right.
And so a lot of people will ignore, and they'll call us and be like, hey, I lost pieces of hardware off the holster. And you're like, well, when was the last time you checked it? And they're like, oh, never.
What do you mean, check it?
Yeah, what do you mean check it? And we're like, okay.
Okay, my engine seized up. Well, when's the last time you changed your oil?
Yeah. It's kind of the same deal.
But
And
to that point, how many people do anything with their holster? How many people come home at the end of the day, they take it out with the gun in a holster, set it down on the shelf, and put it right back in the morning? They never check it. They never pull out. They never practice draws. They never do anything.
and it's a piece of safety equipment. It's not something you are using this. I tell people you need to check it every time you take it on and off, but you can get away with if you've developed a pattern with the holster, okay, I only need to check it once a week or twice a week or however much. Maybe it's not every time you take it on and off, but you got to check it. There's no leeway in that. You can't just forget about it. There's no holster that's good, that's going to do everything you want, that's not and be adjustable, that you don't have to check. So
Right. Right. So Lag Demon in chat says no Tokarev. Those Tundrites, they like to push that Tokarev.
I know. I would like to do more of these. I don't want to disparage it by calling it, meme guns, these things that would be kind of just fun to do. Because I would like to do way more of that kind of stuff, have stuff for all these fun things, but we would get in so much trouble with people that, like, especially people that are like dealers that have been asking us for, we need this 1911 with a red dot on it or whatever, and they've been asking me for months now, and it's like, why can't you get this done? And we're so busy. if I took a moment away to make something like that and they found out, I'd probably I'd be hearing about it pretty quick.
Yeah. Well,
But
at some point though too, it's about pushing the envelope and doing something fun because it puts your name out there. Nobody else is doing it. Guaranteed, nobody else is making a hybrid holster for a Tokarev.
yeah, yeah, and we go back and forth on that around the office. Like, do we want to do this? Are we being silly, or is there even really a market? Because it could be a written off like as marketing. You'd be like, oh yeah, sure, this would be kind of get our name out there, be fun, something people would recognize. But it doesn't cost nothing for us either. So it's still time, money.
It's still, you still got the blank. You still got the time to check how you're going to put the retention into it, test that all out.
It still has to be a functional holster and all these things, and it still has to have our name behind it. So essentially, we've got so many other things that we have to get done first that it kind of just is always like, yeah, maybe we'll do it eventually.
All right. So with the custom order stuff, is that something that you've seen as just weird random stuff? I mean, I know I've seen even just like in your appendix holster, you have things like the car C9s, the W9s, stuff like that, the P45s, whatever. But you don't have that in your like IWB holsters. So if somebody sees something maybe in like an IWB holster but wanted an appendix, is that something you guys could do in like a custom order? Not necessarily in the meme realm, but I see you guys do have a custom thing on your website.
No, not really. So if it's all of our IWB holsters are interchangeable. Essentially, it's just a different leather backing. So if it's not listed across all of them on our website, if it's in the ultra carry section, if there's a model there, we can make our outside the waistband. We can do our ultra carry elites, which is a slightly different inside the waistband. We can do all that. But then when you pull it over and you want the appendix version is two different molds from that holster. It's not using the same tooling at all.
Mm-hmm.
And it's much more, not complex, but it's definitely more precise. We have to be very, very precise with those all Kydex molds because it is two separate pieces of Kydex that we are balancing where the gun sits in that and the angles. So it takes a lot longer, to design, and it also costs twice as much for the tooling because it's two separate pieces of tooling.
Right.
For the Kydex.
So are your hybrid holsters with the leather backing, are those pre-molded with the leather, or is that as you work your gun into it they mold?
Most of it is you're going to get some molding into the leather, but really we want the majority of the gun is going to be sitting in the Kydex section of the holster. So it's on some of the guns you're going to get more one way or the other. But essentially, we don't want a whole lot of the leather moving a lot because then you're going to start messing with your retention and different things. There's certain guns that you're going to be more of an issue than not. And that's why we make them adjustable as well, is that leather's going to break in. You're going to have to keep messing with the retention for a little while as that leather breaks in. But we try to keep it to a minimum. We really try and push that gun out into the Kydex section. So that you're not dealing with the issues you're going to get with the leather collapsing on itself or anything like that. So the leather's there more for comfort than it is for structural purposes. It's gonna allow you to have that thing up against your body and not feel uncomfortable with it. And it is our most comfortable.
You're not going to get a ton of chafing from the high sweat guard or whatever. So.
Right. Yeah. And we also offer different function, different types of cuts. We can customize what we do. But as far as something that needs new tooling, we don't really like to do that a lot, especially if it's like a one-off situation. If it's something that we think, oh, hey, we'll probably sell that. Okay. And we'll tell you, hey, we're going to do that holster. It might be a little while, but we're going to do it. And but if it's a one-off, and you really want it, we're going to be like, all right, you can pay for the tooling and all that, but it's going to be several $100s just to start. And then you got the holster on top of that. And that's just time and tooling, because we're never going to make our money back off of that.
Right.
But as far as customization, like we do a lot of different type of leathers. We have our 2.0 backings, and we can cut the sweat guard off. A lot of people like to have that sweat guard cut off. We call it our combat cut, which allows you, it's just basically one less thing to kind of get in the way of your establishing a grip. So, and we do different color kydex. We add different types of hardware and stuff. So there's lots of different things we like to do that are custom. But as far as one-off guns and things that need their own individual tooling, we don't do a lot of that.
Okay. All right. So yeah, and just to avoid a lot of, maybe as the night goes on, bigger questions where it's, well, do you make like Lag Demon has the Beretta PX4 compact? I know all the guns, all the options are on the website with each individual, holster, what's available. So
it's not 100% up to date. There's some stuff that we're a little behind on getting on the website, but it might just be because we not be 100% sure on tooling, or we haven't tested it enough. Or we might say, well, this is actually a perfectly good holster, but we have a new design in mind, and so we don't want to go to production level with it. But like the PX4 Storm, we do have that. Like, we have one in back. We just did one so far. It worked. We're not super happy with it, but it worked, and we're working on another one. So that's something that we'll probably have permanent tooling for in the next few months, but it's not going to be on the website until we're absolutely sure that it's 100% ready to go.
Right. So Lag Demon did have another good question. He said, is the tooling like a blue gun? I'm assuming you guys create molds from actual or blue gun, but
it depends on the blue gun. Some are more accurate than others. So we can't just go and take a blue gun and assume it's going to be a good model for forming a holster. So we'll seek out a real one, and so usually that's we'll take a blue gun, we'll get started, we'll do an initial test pattern, and we'll have somebody maybe who owns that actual firearm and say, hey, come in here and test this for us, see how it works, and we'll do our check that way. But it can get us started with a blue gun. And but no, our tooling, what we're doing is we take a gun in, and we're going to reverse engineer it into CAD. And once we've got that model, it's not like a part for part remake of it. It's basically just dimensions, a block dimension that we know, okay, if this is here, then we need to have a channel here. So we're kind of building this space, this void, and then we're going to take that CAD and we're going to first we're going to add in the features that we know we want into it for our holster, and then we're going to throw it on our CNC machine, and we're going to do a test mold with it. And it's usually just some kind of not particle board, not OSB. It's a high density wood product,
right? An MDF, something like that.
Yeah, it's more like MDF. That's what I'm thinking of. And so we'll cut out of that, and then we'll go and we'll do a test mold. We'll test vacuum press onto that, and we'll do an initial fitting and stuff. See, okay, well, this is obviously wrong. This needs to move over. Okay, sight channel's not big enough, and we'll go back into the CAD. We'll do an adjustment. And we'll cut out another one, and we'll keep doing that. Sometimes we'll end up with 20 different versions of something before we get it right. Sometimes we get it right on like the first or second one. And so once we do that, then we go into our tooling mold, more permanent, and that's proprietary. I'm not going to be able to tell you much about that other than it's kind of like an epoxy. And so we'll form basically a copy of that wood mold into this tooling material, and that eventually will be our permanent in-house tooling for that holster. And that's where really a lot of the expense can come into that as well, because just one of those molds can cost several $100s in that material.
Yeah, no, I understand working through a process, especially in R&D. I do, for those who don't know, I'm actually an R&D mechanical designer. So I spend 90% of my time on CAD doing prototypes, 1, 2, 3, 4, 15, 20 tests. Sometimes I'm
Right.
working on something for a month. Sometimes I'm working on it for 2 years.
Yeah.
So I get going back to the drawing board 100 times frustrated
Yeah.
because it's just one little thing, but it's that one thing that's not right.
Yeah. And when we're first designing our holsters, when we were first doing our CAD designs, that first design probably took us several years of learning what do we want, where do we want this and that. And so, I mean, it was several years before we really even started selling holsters. We were just trying to get this process figured out of how we were going to do it, what processes we needed to put in place to take a gun and then have a decent holster that would fit for it. And so, and then when we designed our appendix holster, same thing. That took us like a year and a half, 2 years to kind of come down with a basic design. And then from then on, what you're really doing is you're reverse engineering a gun and then modifying that design onto that gun each time. And it still that takes hours and hours and hours, but it kind of speeds up after that first initial one. And it was the same thing with our competition holsters and that too. That took us a couple of years before we had decided, okay, this is a design that we can adapt most guns to. And now we know the pattern of design for each one, and it speeds things up. But
Right.
it's still a lot of not guesswork, but you never know how certain things will react just because a gun is a half-inch longer than a nearly identical gun. All of a sudden now everything doesn't work again. It's hangs up, sight channel doesn't work anymore. All these things doesn't work just because of a tiny little change, and that could
Right.
be a week's worth of somebody's time just to
Especially
figure that.
when you're talking about something like vacuum molding, where your entire vacuum pressure changes, the size of the gun gets bigger. Just that little
Right.
thing. You're talking your
Yeah.
depth of your cuts in your mold now have to get just a little bit deeper to get them drawn the same depth.
Yep, exactly. Yeah. So there's all those kind of considerations that we've had to learn over time, and that now benefit us. We can do things faster in some ways, but then sometimes it just doesn't matter. It's going to take 50 different versions of something before you get it to work correctly,
Yeah.
and it's always the frustrating part. We'd rather just be slamming out holsters and then all right, day's over, ring the bell, let's go shoot, and but uh, unfortunately every day seems to be it's a different challenge every day.
That's good though, because it makes it fun. It keeps things interesting. So, and then
Yeah, I think so.
now you're going even further, and you're going outside of your comfort zone and getting into the competitive shooting realm.
Right. And that was a lot of kind of my influence on that was that when John and my father, the people that founded the company, um John was getting into defensive carry, and he wanted to conceal carry, and I had been recently out of the military, and he wanted me to teach him stuff, and I was like, I don't know anything about pistol. I definitely don't know anything about concealed carry. I don't know the laws, and any of these tactics that most of these trainers at the time were teaching. I'm like, that's tactical bullshit, dude. That's not going to help you at all. And so I didn't have any suggestions for him. I was like, I don't know who to go to. I don't know all this. And he took it on himself. He went and started learning with all these masters, Masada Yu, Mike Seeklander, Wesley Lagomasino, all these different. He couldn't find one that he liked. None of the other guys had any suggestions for ones that they really liked. And so it kind of came down to, let's go and make a holster. And that's where he got involved with my father. And my father was retired, and he's like, let's have some fun with this. And that was the core of the company, and still is this concealed carry defensive pistol, civilian style carry, uh, concealed carry pistol holsters. And so I not being a big I don't want to student. I wasn't a big student of concealed carry stuff. It wasn't so I like rejected anything tactical, especially after the military. I was like, nah, I don't want to do anything tactical. I don't want all this concealed carry stuff. I'm not super interested in getting super deep into it like John was. But I really like shooting, but I didn't want to just sit at the range and unload my gun and turn money into noise. And so I got into competition. That was kind of my excuse to go shooting. And so um, I realized how much better I got and how much more interest I had in shooting. And even if it for defensive training, even that it was more interesting to me if I was learning a new way to shoot a gun, if I was getting better at my fundamentals. I could train more, have more fun doing it. If I was, and the end result was me doing better in a competition. And I brought that back into the company and showed John, like, hey, this is what competition does for us. Why don't we do more of this? And by the way, all these holsters, competition holsters suck. I need a competition holster. And John decided he was like, all right, well, let's get you a competition holster, and he built me one. And it worked so well that he was like, I think we got something here. And so now we've dived head first into that, and we're going pretty hard into that realm.
Nice. It's definitely it's definitely an interesting thing to see a company branch out from one segment completely into another, and a lot of people don't see the comparison between the two or how they're even closely related. And I think that's a big misnomer, especially in our industry or by certain individuals specifically, that competition is not the same as defensive shooting. And I would agree to some point, but it's still shooting. And it does get your adrenaline up. It gets you into a different mindset than just when you go to a regular range and you're just shooting a couple rounds off. So yeah. I think it's a little bit more mental.
And you can see here, this is actually the very first competition holster that we made. Our designs are much different now. You can see that on our website, precisionholsters.com. Our design has evolved since then. And actually, I've upgraded this a little bit. It was a little different then. And we also have our mag pouches, and these are some of the original mag pouches. And then you can see that the design has changed as we've upgraded and found new things going on there. And right now we're still using some hardware. This is like a Boss hanger, and this is a Ghost belt. But these are our hangers for the mag pouches. We're starting to develop all this stuff for ourselves and getting other companies to machine this and anodize these parts for us. But they're our design.
Nice.
The mag and stuff. So we're getting more and more finding ways that we don't want to just copy. So we're everything we do is definitely an evolution. Even if there's something similar, our stuff has something different going on there that's going to improve your performance, improve your confidence, or allow you to access your fundamentals better in some way. We're not just going to put something out there for the hell of it, just because it might sell a little bit. In fact, we're not making much money on those hardware parts. We just pretty much just pass that cost along to keep our costs down. Otherwise, it'd be $100 for each one of those mag pouches if we tried to make any money off of it.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely one of those things where it's an interesting aspect in any business where you got to try to come up with something that makes you stand out from everybody else, but you're doing the same thing. And yeah. I've seen, I mean, I can tell just from like the thought you've put into the website and showing the differences between yours and others, even just in an IWB holster or, in your appendix holster, the different angle of the clips and how it's set up and how it's done. You can tell the thought process is there, that you're looking at it from an aspect of how can we do this differently but still accomplish the same thing as some of these other guys that are out here who people consider top end. And to be honest, I've got it. I mean, I've got my wife a T1C holster. I really like it, but for what it is, I don't like the design and how they chose to, create the angle on the grip of the gun. I don't like the wing, especially on a single clip M style, holster. It just, to me, it's clumsy and it moves around, especially when you switch to something like an Ulti clip.
Right. And when I say we're not just copying, it's not that we're just trying to be different enough so that it's not a copy. We don't want to. Like I said, it's an evolution. If it's not better, then we're not going to do it. Even if it might be different. Oh, we changed it from 2 degrees to 5 degrees. It's like, well, didn't really change the function of something.
Yeah,
And so that's not something we're interested in. And so when we're getting this competition holster, there is literally nothing else out there like it, and there still isn't. There we've been hearing from even other holster manufacturers, competitive holster manufacturers, that have seen our gear and told some of our shooters like, oh, that's different. What is that? And and once you explain, like you show a lot of the features about how, you see a lot of these competition guys, and they go up to the line and it's, oh, make ready, and they start fiddling with everything, right? They're undoing all the knobs, they're releasing all the retention, they're doing all this stuff, and we're like, well, why? What? Well, it's because their holsters are such junk, that they can't pull the gun out of the holster without it snagging and holding, everything's banging around and it's not holding correctly. We've taken everything of that, all of that out. So you can have that thing snugged down really, really hard. And it still, when you have once you've established a firm grip and you pull on that gun, it's going to be 99% snag free. 99.999% snag free. You're not going to have any snags. It's not going to hold onto that gun in any way because of the natural biomechanics of your hand. You're just going to, as soon as you start pulling on it, the holster releases. And there's no magic about it. It's just thought. We design and just going looking at it and saying, okay, why is the gun hanging up? Okay, how does your hand, when somebody has a grip, when you pull up, which direction is the torsion and all that?
Your angle of pull, all that.
We just looked into that and we said, okay, we already have design features in some of our concealment holsters that kind of fix this, especially our appendix holsters. There's actually a lot of our appendix holster design that wound up in our competitive holster design, because it was all based on fundamentals. And if you're designing towards fundamentals, then it's going to work no matter what you're really using it for. So then it was just, okay, can we use this appendix holster size design in something bigger like a competitive gun? And the answer was yes. And then most of the challenge was just making sure the sight channels were big enough for people that, because people that run the much larger sights, and making it optics ready so that, you can run optics with all of our holsters, no problem. And then does it comply with the rules of the major sporting leagues, USPSA,
Right.
IDPA, and all that. And so we made sure to be able to implement those designs in a way that was legal for those. And now there's nothing else like it, because it's hard to beat something that allows 100% of your fundamentals to come through. If you can do that, then the holster's not holding you back anymore. We've eliminated the holster, not dilemma. We might call it like a restriction. We took the restrictor plate off of your car,
Right.
and now it's just as fast as you can employ the fundamentals, you can draw that gun out of that holster. And we've done the same thing with our mag pouches, and being that we put these angles onto them as they go around the body. Those angles change as they go around. So the first one kind of angled out, so that as I'm coming down, because people have their mags, if you're imagining them wrapped around your body, they're flat against your body. Well, I don't come in and I don't come across my body to grab a mag. I come down like this. And so it's almost like a parallel movement. This is just the natural way your hand wants to come down to grab that mag. And so we've angled our mags out so that it's in line with the way your hand naturally wants to move. You're going to get a better grip, faster grip on that. And as you go around your body, that changes. That natural biomechanical angle changes. So those angles change as they go back around the body. And so by the time you get around the back, there's almost no angle on it, because that's just the way your hand has to move. And all these things have been implemented, and now it's just trying to do it really pretty.
Well, you do it pretty because just to put the two words together, you do it pretty.
Thank
I mean, I've seen pictures, I've seen images of what you guys put out, and they're good looking holsters for something that you don't want anybody to see, especially like the concealed stuff. That they're really good looking, and then the stuff that you do see is like, all right, that's attention to detail as far as making it pretty. So
you go so long not being able to be flashy, and it's like, hey, we're having fun. This is competition. Let's get flashy. Let's do some wild colors, man. Let's throw it out there. Everything's on the table, and we've done everything from Star Wars inspired whole rig systems. It was pretty dope. It was like this whole like Jedi looking rig that this guy had. It looked like an X-wing kind of deal. And we all the way to like full blackout rigs, everything all black. It looks kind of Darth Vader-ish, and so that's a lot of fun. So that inspires us to do a lot more of those, because there's so many different variables that you can put in there, make it unique to each person. Like it's like every holster we get, oh, they want just a little tweak here. Can I get different color rivets or anodized hardware? And it's like, heck yeah, man, let's do it. This is really cool stuff. So we enjoy it. If it's not on the website, you can always, like I said, you give me a call or email us, and we're happy to try and work with you aesthetically on that stuff, because it's a lot of fun. We really enjoy doing it.
So I'm convinced either Lag Demon works for you or he should, because he keeps trying to transition us into different things. So he says he wears a core belt for EDC, or he has worn a core belt. He does wear a core belt for EDC. What do you have to compare to that?
Well, I don't have it within arm's reach. We have our Nylon tactical belt. And our Nylon tactical belt is we made it so that the most of the work is being done by the nylon. You're not relying on like a Cobra buckle or something, which are always really clunky to get through belt loops, or they're digging into your stomach or something like that. So we made these very, very slim line. I mean, they're very, very small, but the shape was put through pretty rigorous testing to make sure it was strong enough. But essentially, you can throw that belt through your loops one way or the other. You can put the buckle all the way through if you put it on backwards if you wanted to. But it's we haven't had a single one of those belts get returned to us. They are absolutely indestructible belts, and we 300-pound guys doing pull-ups with them, looped over a bar or something. And we can do those in different varying of stiffness. We sell them kind of a standard stiff that's very, very stiff, that's not going to break in too much. Like I've been wearing mine for about 5 years now, and it feels nearly just as stiff as it did when I first got it, which you're not going to get with like a leather belt. Leather belts, eventually it's going to break down a bit, and it's going to get softer and fold over a little. But with that nylon belt is impressively strong, stiff, and we can actually do a competition version that we don't really advertise on the website. But there you go. You can
pull it up a little bit there. You can kind of see the belt loop, how it's figured out there.
Yeah, and it's not much to it. It's there's actually just a nylon loop on one side, and you put that buckle through that, and it's
you
just
adjust
a single
your Velcro
point
over here.
Yeah, and the downside to it is that it's not as one size fit all as some belts try to be, which like that's where you end up with like the Cobra belts, because you can adjust both sides. You've got like 20 inches of play in there. Ours have about 6 inches of play, either 3 in each direction for waistline expanding or putting on your concealing gear or whatnot.
Right.
So they sized, and so that's a slight downside to that style, but it's much more slimline. It's not as obvious when you're wearing it. It's not a rigger belt that's looks all super tactical all the time. For most of the time, unless you really look at that belt buckle and okay, then maybe that is a tactical belt. It's pretty inconspicuous.
Right. So I actually had to look down at my phone. My wife texted me, which she normally doesn't do when I'm doing one of these, but she's watching upstairs and she's like, "So from what I've seen on the website, you have a lot of men's colors. Do you
Uh,
offer anything that tailors more toward the feminine side?" I'm guessing not Tiffany blue because my wife would shoot me, but something that's a little bit softer.
uh, it's that really comes down to like the Kydex manufacturers. We can do nearly anything that they'll produce. Um, there's plenty of, you know, the typical girl colors, pink, blue, fuchsia, these so-called things. But we find that it's like most women, it's like you get them this pink holster and they're like, thanks, buddy. I don't really want that.
Yeah,
It's
yeah. But you know what? If you give them, if you give it to them, they hate you for it. But if you give them the option, they want it.
but not really. We have most women that come into our shop want just the standard black color, or maybe an OD green or coyote, like any other guy. It's we've got pink Kydex that's been sitting on the shelf for years now. I mean, we go through it so slowly that it's not a big seller. People don't really care. And we started out going like, okay, we'll have like some just variable colors, and we found that most of the time people don't want it. Actually, they just want
Right. Well, a lot of
it.
times too, if it's concealed carry, and I understand it. I mean, if it's concealed carry, what's it matter? It's going under your pants. Like anybody who's seeing it shouldn't be seeing it anyways. So
Yeah,
black is
yeah,
inconspicuous. Grays
yeah,
are inconspicuous. Something neutral color doesn't
yeah.
stick out.
It matches everything, and so even for our outside the waistband holsters, that's usually where we'll get like a request for something that's maybe a little more colorful. And but even then, we find that most of the time what looks really good is a more subtle black leather, black holster, and then maybe doing some subtle accents, like we'll do blue or red or green stitching into the leather, or we'll do anodized, blue, red, white, or silver hardware for rivets and stuff like that. And that ends up usually being much more attractive in the end than a big flat, big blue piece of Kydex or something.
Right.
So the accents tend to be much more interesting than than the whole bulk. It's like, a big pink piece of leather or something. It's just like it's too much. So if you get them in the accents, that's usually where the ladies really like to have the customized stuff. So if you are looking for like a gift, I would go, much more subtle on the colors, and then go much more interesting in the highlights. Get those customized features in there, and with the different color threads, if or the anodized hardware, and that can be much more interesting than a big pink ugly looking thing.
That's a fair
Uh,
point. So,
I like
um,
I've got nothing against. I just find that a lot of ladies actually get kind of offended by that. So it seems to be the first thing every guy thinks when
well, yeah, and she's, to be
when a
fair, she's
lady.
not.
Oh, you make
Yeah, she's texting me now, so she's getting this, and she's probably like, "You know me better than that, asshole. Make it right." So she's not much for a pink, but she likes to have her stuff stand out a little bit more. So
And that's what I'm saying is we're all guys here. We try and get our lady friends and girlfriends and significant others in on it and be like, okay, what do you want? And we show them all the color options for the Kydex, and they're like,
yeah,
oh,
and
I'd
we're
like
generally stupid. We're like, we think that women all like this floofy, like, oh, look at me, pink
right,
color or
yeah,
something like that. And in actuality, they're the ones who want the leather and chrome look or something.
exactly, yeah, and that's what we have found was over they kept saying, oh well, I don't really want that color Kydex. Why can't you make it more for a lady? And I'm like, well, these are the options. What do you want? We're not going to change the color of the leather. That's too ridiculous. And we got these colors of Kydex. Pick one. If you don't like black, if black is for men, then what do you want? Oh, well, we don't want the pink. We don't want the blue. Which the man brain thinks. and then so it was a slow thing to be discovered. Oh, well, we can add this to it. Oh, I like that. Oh, I
Yeah,
like
yeah,
this.
and that's exactly what she texted. I said she was blowing my phone up. She's like, "I like the idea of accents. That sounds good."
And
Yeah,
that's so we it may not seem like we have options for women, but we really do. We work with women a lot. There's the women is the fastest growing. Women of color is one of the fastest growing sectors of gun owners, and so working with people like that, we especially like to get ladies in here and be like, let us know what you want. We're willing to work with you, and we're not looking to spend your money either. We want you to have something that's going to work for you at whatever your price point is, and we'll try and gussy it up, I guess would probably be the
yeah. You
term
put
for
the
that.
lipstick on the pig.
No, 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 no. No, we don't want to say that.
Come on, that's the fun part. We get to say whatever we want right now. But no, it is the thing. You're kind of just dialing it up a little bit, making it just pop a little,
Yeah.
not
No.
stick out like a sore thumb, but
Yeah. Non-functional aesthetics. And so you're getting all that kind of stuff in there. And we like to get the custom ideas. And women usually have some of the really coolest customization mashups.
Right. Well,
Stuff that
they've got an idea for putting stuff together, right? That's
I
why
get.
we don't succeed without them.
Yeah. And so we've done we've done all sorts, and with our competition gear has been very exciting because we have gotten a bit more into the more exotic colors because um, usually the colors are already kind of just an accent to it because our competition holster is primarily this carbon fiber look on the outside with an accent color on the inside, and then the anodized hardware is all going to be picked out to match that. And so the ladies have definitely come into our shop and started going to town on all of our hardware out here, and they'll go looking for some interesting colors and mix and match stuff that we're like, that's not going to work. Put it all together, and sure enough, man, that looks fantastic. So that can be a lot of fun. That can be a really really fun. The companies that put out some of that hardware, um, we're looking all the time for new interesting combinations just because we've had so much fun with that part of it.
Right, right. So, so for some of the material snobs out there, because I know especially in the gun industry, nobody wants to admit they're snobs, but everybody has their own thing that they snob out about. So whether it's the type of gun you use, the type of material of holsters that you have with your competition holsters, obviously you're using aluminum if you're anodizing, right?
Yes.
For the hardware stuff. Um, is there any other materials that you guys like to use? Like, have you had anybody come in and request, hey, I'd really like that aluminum piece in titanium or something just completely off the wall stupid?
No, usually if I recently played with a couple of ideas that wasn't brought in, but I was trying to do like a hardwood finishing hardware on our holster. I was trying to do like this kind of like just like an oak look. I was trying to make these accent pieces out of that. We've had people request some weird colors or threading in colors that we just couldn't get a hold of. But nothing too exotic. Most of the time, people stick pretty close to something they've seen already. Like except for the ladies. The ladies definitely are like, "Oh, do you have this? Do you have this? Can you go find that? Can you do that?" And which we love. That's fun. But most of the guys, they'll find something that they'll see something they like, and they say, "I want that." So it usually doesn't get too exotic as far as weird requests. And in the end, we found that most of the time, so long as you're getting the effect, like we could probably replace a lot of our aluminum stuff with plastic, so long as it looked like aluminum, and most people would be happy with it, but we wouldn't be happy with it because we actually want it to be decent stuff.
Right.
But yeah, usually it's the other. It's going the other way. People want it to be lighter and cheaper, for the most part, and that's what we end up fighting. We're like, no, just go with the good stuff, brother. Trust me.
Well, yeah, cheaper is one thing. I just always fight that whole cheap versus
Right.
quality. You know, you can have something that's cheap. Like if you look at it and say, I mean, like if I'm looking at your holsters, and I look at your IWB holster with the hybrid. You're talking about tooling leather. You're talking about the Kydex mold, the work that goes into it, the fits and finishes that I'm seeing from the pictures that I've seen. All of that coupled together, to me, what you have your holsters listed for seems cheap. $60 for all that hand tooling, that work, those little attentions to detail, the burnishing the edge of the leather the way you do, just that little bit of attention to detail. You can tell that you're chopping the corners of the leather before you go in to burnish it. You're breaking that edge. You're paying attention to just the little details that some other people don't. I mean, you buy a leather holster from Uncle Mike's, or everybody picks on them, but just a leather holster from anywhere, and you get those edges, and you can feel the felting on the edge. It's just not done. It's not finished.
Yeah, we'll go into a gun shop, and we'll go into one of the bigger ones here, and we'll go and do what we're looking for. There's one place that we go to get fly fishing stuff to make fly fishing flies, and when we're done, we always go walk through the holster aisle, and we'll take one out of the package, and we'll start looking at it. We're like, oh yeah, they didn't polish this edge, or this okay. Oh, this hardware. Oh, this is just plastic. Okay, and and then we look at the prices, and we're like, okay, we're priced competitively with them, but our quality is way better.
Right.
And we've toyed with the idea of charging more, and if we grow all the time, and that allows us to keep our costs down, and we make efficient processes that allow us to keep all these quality pieces of the puzzle that make our holsters what they are, but spend less time doing it. So we're not like we're trying to automate things more than they need to be, but we try and find things that maybe shortcut a part that slows us down. So if it takes me 10 minutes to make a holster, I'm not going to actually say how long it takes me to make a holster, but if it takes me 10 minutes, if I can cut down to 9 minutes, I might be able to make 3 extra holsters in the day. And if we need to make X amount of holsters, that'll always help us keep the cost down. And we're never looking to maximize profit off of each one. We want to make sure you get the holster that's going to work for you.
Right. I mean, that's kind of the same theory that I go with even my own business. Is I'd rather sell 100 shirts and make $1 than sell one shirt and make $100.
Right. And so with everything we do, we're looking to have that satisfaction in the end, that person says, this is the best holster I've had. Or even if it doesn't work for them, we can say, give it back to us. Not a problem. We'll go ahead and refurbish that holster. If it was, if they actually did use it for maybe a week and it just didn't work for them, maybe we'll replace the leather or whatnot. Or if they got it and it was immediately obvious that, hey, this just doesn't work for me, it's not going to work. Or, hey, I screwed up, it's the wrong holster for my gun. We'll take it back. We can sell it again. It's not a big deal. It's it's such a quality product that it's not going to degrade and through the mail.
Right.
Right. And some of these guys, they're cutting, they have to sell, 500 holsters a day to make a profit, and it's not even worth it for them to receive that holster back, because all that profit margin was completely gone the minute they had it returned to them. And so that's never our goal. It's to create efficiency on our side, to make sure that we leave room to accommodate things that you might need. At that competitive price. If we start selling our stuff for $90 a holster, we're not going to sell any of them. because that's a big. It might be worth that much. It might, I think a lot of our holsters are worth more than what we sell them for. But if I can't get them out there, then people aren't going to be able to. People won't take that leap to spend $40 more for a holster.
Well, yeah, too, and in a world where everything is fucking Walmart,
Right.
it's hard. It's hard to have a quality product and push that out and still get your name and get spread out there. But
Right.
I mean, I can say from somebody who understands leather work and the amount of work that goes in just that little bit, it doesn't matter if it takes you 2 minutes to make a holster, if it takes you an hour to make a holster. The amount of time that you put into it doesn't matter. You're paid for your value, not your time.
Yeah,
and you're putting out a lot of quality in whatever time it takes you compared to some other guys.
Yeah, and part of that is choosing the right materials to begin with. And like when we first started out, we were dyeing leather, we're putting the sealers on, we're doing all this stuff to make these the way we wanted them, and it took forever. It was half a day of just prepping all this stuff to get the material the way we wanted it. When we started working with some of these major leather tanneries, right now we work with the second largest in the United States. That was another requirement. We were working with some that they just provided what they had. They're like, this is what we got. If it doesn't work, tough luck. So we started working with other tanneries, and we worked with this one, and they make the leather to our specifications now. So when we get it, it's already nearly there. All we have to do is cut our pattern, do our tooling and everything, and burnish. We're finishing it rather than building it from scratch 100%. And it's a better quality that way too. We're getting a whole hide done to the same quality that might vary by a few degrees if we were doing each one by hand for each holster. So, and then with the same thing with our kydex. Our kydex is not standard kydex that like you might get in a kit. We're getting a different thickness because we're drawing in a vacuum, so we know things are going to thin out. So we have to start with a thicker style kydex, and we're the temperatures that we're working at. The machine does different things to make sure that if you just try and heat up a piece of kydex to the temperature that you need to vacuum it, all sorts of things are going to happen. The kydex material is going to change. It's going to become more brittle. The oils inside it, because it's a petrol product, the oils are going to come to the surface. It's going to get all weird and shiny. All the texture that's kind of already molded into it's going to go away. So it's not as simple as just heating something up and pulling a vacuum. There's all sorts of different processes involved in that, and specific temperatures. There's a very small band of temperature that you need to hit each time you're pulling that vacuum down on the tooling to get the right texture, thickness, and but still retain the flexibility that you need in there to have that holster come out correctly, as well as you got your textured kydex. You got these new ones coming out, this Bolteron stuff that's coming out. The Bolteron's very exciting stuff because it can be thinner, but it will still be as rigid as regular kydex. And it also has a higher heat threshold before it starts to lose some of that rigidity. But even regular kydex, it's hard to get it hot enough to screw it up.
Right.
And
engineered thermoplastics are an amazing thing nowadays. So
yeah, exactly. So there's all these sorts of new thermoplastics coming out that are very exciting, and we're always looking not just to create the shape of a holster, makes a holster shaped object, like I like to call it. We're making something that is fundamentally correct. That's actually going to help you not just retain a gun on your hip. It's actually going to help you use the gun.
Yeah. So Mario in the chat is saying the same thing he likes to say every time he sees you. He's still waiting on an SFX competition holster, open division.
Well, yeah. Well, this is the very first one. Believe it or not, was an SFX mechanic SFX holster. That's what I run in competition. I'm in production, but that was the very first one. Unfortunately, we've made some design improvements over since we first did this. Like I said, this is very different to what we have now. If you can compare this to the pictures on the website, but that tooling was unfortunately lost, and so it's just even working here, it seems to be that if I own the gun, unfortunately, you get put on the blacklist for getting your holster done in a reasonable amount of time, unless I just sit there and poke John over and over again to be like, hey, do my holster, fix my holster, fix my holster. So yeah, I'm with you, Mario. I want a new one. A lot of people are really excited, want the Canic, so I'm on it. I want one just as bad. So I am working on that.
Yeah, that's what I'm carrying right now is the TP9SF. So not the SFX,
Okay.
obviously. I'm not stupid crazy. I just went full size.
Yeah, and I want to do the whole line. I want to do the whole TP9, from the SF. From the C to the SFX and everything in between, all the elites. I want to do that whole line for all of our stuff. And it's just been, like I said, I think John puts me on the blacklist just to tweak my nipples a bit.
Well, make John watch this and just say, legitimately, John, it is the most popular selling gun on the market right now.
I know. And so I think, with that with that popularity, we should be able to get that done fairly soon, because I've had a few other local guys that are pestering John now, and so that helps. I have an outside influence to
Right.
keep it on his brain, because if it's just me, I think I become the wife, the, what do you call it, the selective hearing.
Yeah.
I've said it so many times now that I think he's just like, yeah, we'll do it.
Yeah, Mario says he'll be patient, flips you off, and says, "Oh well."
Yeah. I'm right there with you, buddy.
So looking at your background, not necessarily your background, like physically. I'm actually not talking about the background. You got the books behind you.
My personal background.
Yeah, not your personal background. Actually, the books behind you. I don't know anything about your personal background. If you want to go into that, fine. But
no, we'll talk about I finished building this not too long ago, and I think it looks all right.
Yeah, it looks good. So, are you a book person by nature, or is this just a show?
No, I like books. My family, actually, I was when I was born, my parents had actually just bought or started. Did they buy it? I don't remember now. Anyway, they had a bookstore here in town, and for many years, and that's actually where I learned to walk and everything. The bookstore is still there. They sold it when they wanted to buy a house, so they ended up selling that business. But I've always, through my whole life, been a big book hound. Although most of the time now, I'm doing most of it on audio. You just listen to it with books on tape kind of deal.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that. It's easy to take. I'm sitting at a desk for 9-10 hours a day. I can take in 3 or 4 books a week.
Yeah,
So,
big time. Yeah, I've got well over like 500 books in my Audible library, and I'm pretty sure I've listened to all of
them. So out of all the books you've read, what is your favorite book? It's probably a question you didn't prepare for tonight.
No, well, but I was actually thinking about it. There's a couple. There was a book that it's hard to pin. It's like it comes in eras. It's like, what was the best book when I was this age, and this is that.
Right.
Some of my favorite books of all time were Fight Club, The Beach. It's always fiction. I'm not a big nonfiction guy, but The Beach, Fight Club, and the Game of Thrones series is really good. And the thing I'm most excited about now, and I'll throw in Taylor Anderson's Destroyerman series, but that's finished now, so those are gone, and now I'm into the Expeditionary Force novels. So that's
nice. The Expeditionary Force novels are incredible.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
It's hard to beat
some of your
movies also.
favorites obviously go into the film and television adaptation. So
Yeah. Most of those I was fans of.
disappointed by the film adaptations or pleasantly surprised? I know Fight Club is kind of one of those where it's pretty damn close either way. They both have their positives, both have their negatives.
I
But
actually liked the movie better.
yeah, I think the
like-
movie made it harder to understand. I was actually one of those who saw the movie before reading the book.
Yeah.
So the book was harder to follow along with than the movie was.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's why I like the movie better. I had read the book prior to seeing the movie, and I was still. It was like I hadn't even read the book. Watching the movie and reading the book was a very different experience, even though I still loved the book. The movie I hold is still probably in my top 3 movies of all time. If at least probably the most influential in my forming my personality at that age. Right, it hit me like right at the right age.
Oof, he says Fight Club is forming your personality. Don't meet you in a back alley, right?
No, it wasn't necessarily like, oh, maybe want to go beat people up. It was, but it definitely had some influence on me, and as far as like how I went about like thinking about things and
Right.
changing.
Yeah, and that's I joke about it, but it is that
No.
that movie is so much more like people think of Fight Club, and you can always tell the person who hasn't seen it because they think of Fight Club. Oh, it's just a gore fest, or it's just stupid. Just it's not. It's a mind fuck.
Yeah,
if
it
you're
was
really into it.
Super meta movie back when that was not a thing that people did.
Right.
That was aesthetically appealing to people that weren't into very cerebral type of movies, but also was very deep and had a lot of subtle craziness going on that you could sit there and watch that movie 100 times and each time find something new that was kind of,
Yeah, the little Easter eggs in there were.
So yeah, I really loved that, and and like the beach was basically like write that movie off. It was pretty bad.
It was a Leonardo DiCaprio movie. We'll leave it at that.
The book was very cinematic in the way it was told already. And Alex Garland, who now has made some very some pretty impressive movies in his own right as a director, and written lots of movies. You can see where his direction was going. Like his writing was really well suited for putting on screen. They just didn't. In that case, The Beach was a little bit harder than most of his work. But I really like a lot of the stuff that Alex Garland has done, and that kind of stuff. But other movie adaptation, all the Dune stuff has always been kind of hit or miss as far as what they do well or what they get wrong.
Yeah, and I like to say that Hollywood pretty much just stopped existing once everybody went to drug rehab back in the 90s. So
yeah, it sounds about right.
It's been just remakes and shit shows since then. So Mario in the chat says, "Read to us, Scott. Nice and low, whisper voice." Apparently, he'd like some ASMR.
Yeah. Long range. I sit here and we'll do story time. We'll just be like, yeah. Laser rangefinders are extremely useful tools. They are the most precise method you will likely have to determine a target's distance. They are so precise. No, well, see, I've already screwed it up.
Well, Mario, this is all your fault. I blame you.
No, we're gonna keep going just for you, buddy.
We're gonna do it.
They are so precise, in fact, you should use them even when you are at targets of a known distance. You might be surprised to find that the known distance isn't correct. Amazing. All right, that was it for you.
There you go. Lag Demon's laughing it up in chat. So Mario says, "Yeah."
It's a long-range shooting handbook, a beginner's guide to precision shooting.
Right?
Yeah, Ryan Kleckner.
Yep.
I don't know if he's actually put out his advanced guide yet. He keeps saying he's going to, but I don't think he has.
Yeah, I think that's his unicorn project at this point. See, there you go. Now you screwed it up, Mario. His background's falling apart.
Yeah. So yeah. Do I have a career in this, guys? Should I start narrating tactical?
Audiobooks as read by Scott.
Yeah. I actually did do a lot of audio stuff back. Early internet days. Did a bunch of audio drama stuff. I did a lot of production. I didn't do a lot of voice acting. I was part of HG World when we won at Dragon Con. We won. It wasn't. Now I think they've changed the name of it, but it was the podcast awards for audio drama stuff. We won best long form something or other for HG World when I was doing work for that. And I worked on. I did produce a couple of episodes for the Dune Steve audio fiction magazine, and I worked on a couple others doing minor roles. But I did do that for a while. That was a lot of fun. I've been thinking about doing that a little bit more.
Yeah, you got the setup. Use it, right?
Yeah, well, this is actually kind of more of a podcasting mic than it would be for recording voice. I actually had this crazy ass like $3,000 microphone that I have for doing proper voice narration that I've really ever taken it out of the box. Now that I think about it.
Well, the difference between there's certain people in the industry who would say the difference between $300 and $3,000 is negligible unless you got the studio for it. So
that's been the thing is when I did have a studio all set up for it, I think I set it all up and tested it and it was beautiful, and then I immediately ended up having to move and did a bunch of other stuff. So I've never really had a studio that was correct, for that. So I keep sitting there, I keep threatening to sell it, and I never do. And it's a Neiman. I don't, I can never pronounce that correctly, but it's a
Neiman.
very nice mic.
Yeah. No, definitely. So, anything else you want to touch on tonight? I know we kind of had a couple things that you said you wanted to kind of talk about. I think we kind of hit on some of them with the the competition shooting, how it compares and crosses over into training.
We didn't talk too long about that
I know you kind of wanted to get into that a little bit, and I think a lot of people are really, like we said earlier, misnomered about how competition can cross over into training, and I think there's the younger group of people kind of get it, but the older group not necessarily so much. They think it's just a bunch of guys shooting as fast as they can.
Well, and so you get the tactical bros that will definitely fight competition training as a legitimate form of shooting, as in it's going to do more harm than good, and that's been a battle for. I was definitely in that group when I came out of the military. But that was usually what people were asking. But it was like, okay, I want to be a better shooter as far as tactics go. And they're like, I shoot IDPA. And I'm like, well, you're not going to learn anything about shooting tactically from IDPA. That might be fun to do. But if you want to learn tactics, you need to go do training. And you need to learn with the person that knows how to do all this tactical stuff. But it wasn't about fundamentals. It was about tactics and that kind of stuff, which was what, like I said, began with me and John in the beginning, and him wanting me to teach him how to shoot and all this stuff. And I'm like, none of this applies. And that was that clash there where it was like, I want to learn how to shoot. Okay. You want to learn fundamentals. Fundamentals are fundamentals. They cross over both directions, tactical and competitive. There's zero difference whatsoever. But if you want to learn tactical stuff, then you're not going to learn that in IDPA competition, even though it is more of a quote unquote defensive, what do they call founders intent type of competition. You're not going to learn anything with that. It's a game, period. Stop, but shooting, if you can shoot well, and if you're a top shooter in IDPA, USPSA, 3-gun, all this stuff, all of it transfers 100% of it transfers over. You just stop playing the game. That's it. And so now you just need to learn the tactics, but all the fundamentals are still the same. You just stop playing the game, and that's as far as I can tell. That's where I find people can't disconnect those things, where they think, oh, well, if I'm shooting this way, I have to shoot this way all the time, and that's not true. That's not training your situational awareness. If you're not situationally aware, then sure, you best shoot the same way you're going to shoot every single time, but that's going to leave you with large gaps where if it doesn't fit your training, then you don't know what to do. You're going to freeze. But if you're flexible, then you can use those fundamentals to backtrack and find what's the best path of which path to take. Because like I said, if you're so rigid in it that as soon as something goes off, then you're going to freeze. You see it all the time. That's like when soldiers say, well, how'd you know what to do? I fell back on my training. The training kicked in, right? You hear that every single time.
Right,
the training.
Right. Well,
I don't even remember doing it.
I think that's a big thing about the military too, is like a lot of people, I guess now even you can't even say that the military may even lack this going forward, but the military trains you a specific way. They break you down till you're at your absolute weakest, your absolute mental deficient point, but you learn from there so that you always fall back on it. And out in civilian society, you don't necessarily do that. So you end up at a point where you never actually train the way you're going to need it when you get to the point where you're like actually where you've been saying you're training to get to. Right. If that makes sense.
There's a saying that we say, you never rise to the occasion, you fall to your level of training. And your lowest level of training, actually.
Right. You're only as strong as your weakest link. And that's not just a team thing, that's an individual thing.
Exactly, yeah. And even in the military, they still teach you they what they want to do. They're not breaking you down to train you everything. They're breaking you down to give you your fundamentals. They're you're unlearning things. You're building trust in the process, one, so that I don't question certain things, right? Is I need cover, here's how to give cover. Boom. What happens when your buddy's shot? Shoot back. It's kind of simple things like that. Those are the things they want to ingrain in you. But then as you go up into the ranks and the leadership, things get more complex, and you have to learn how not just to control yourself but control others, right? I'm not just controlling my individual movements, I'm controlling a team, I'm controlling a squad and a platoon. And so you have to include all these parts, and in order to keep that job simple, everybody else has to have their own simplified thing as well. So I can yell cover fire and every single person in my squad knows how to do that. And so I don't have to go to each person and say, shoot at that guy, shoot at this guy, shoot at that guy. Okay, I say covering fire, and each person knows, hey, I'm over here, I shoot this way. There's that kind of stuff that gets broken down, which does not apply to civilian life as far as tactics, right? I can't go and start yelling at people, even though there's a guy shooting a crowd up. I can't say covering fire, and people are going to know what I'm talking about, right?
Right. You're gonna have like two people in an entire crowd that even have any clue of what it is, and the likelihood that you guys are even close to each other, not likely.
Right. And so there's these holes where teamwork does not. As a leader, like it's like, okay, I was trained to be a leader. I know how to command a platoon. I can't start giving commands as a leader and expect people to follow it. Everything falls back down to the individual. So right. In your individual civilian training, you have to rely always that's how it's going to be. You can't ever expect to have backup and that kind of stuff. So training as military doesn't work. None of that's going to work because it's all built on the team, right? Having backup,
right?
Having headquarters or somebody to tell you what to do, or being able to tell somebody what to do and have them know what you're talking about. And so the tactical people that get upset about competition are in that zone where they don't know how to cut that part out, where this is not about teamwork, right? This is an individual sport. It's not it's all about fundamentals. If your fundamentals are good, then you're going to be good at the sport. Whereas in the team, your fundamentals don't have to be great. They just have to match everybody else's, right? I can be a terrible shot. Most guys, in fact, in the infantry, even terrible shots. I mean, I'm talking, I could go up and I was a marksmanship coach. So I shot really well. I was a top guy, and I did not get a perfect score every time I went up and shot. But I got close to it. I was always a expert shooter. And so I'm looking at 38 out of 40 targets every single time I shot, regardless of, maybe one of the targets wasn't working, or there was a clump of trees. I couldn't see one very well, but I always got expert. And there were other guys that needed 3, 4, 5 attempts just to qualify. That's 26 targets out of 40. And so, but if they're qualified, then, they're still on my team. I still have to work with them, and they can be a super effective fire team. They can go in and just do a mission and have just no problem whatsoever, be perfectly effective. But maybe, their individual fundamentals weren't perfect, but they were part of a team. So it all gets blended together. They have backup. Everybody knows each other's weaknesses, and those tactical guys don't like that. They don't like when you get singled out and they say, okay, every single one of you need to shoot expert, and you're going to be ranked on that success. Even though you can be one of the best fire teams in the Army, you're a crap shooter, buddy. And your individual competitive tactics suck, and you don't know how to win a game. You're coming in last place, and those egos can't handle that.
Yeah. As my uncle used to say, the guy who can't drive the nail at 50 yards with his service revolver, and he's older, obviously. He says that's the guy you put on the machine gun.
There you go. Yeah.
It's not about everybody being able to shoot. Sometimes you just need a guy who lays down suppressive fire, and your goal with that is not to hit anything, just to keep their head down. So you give him the LMG.
Yeah, American White Guy says I got 79 out of 40. I was like, yeah, we had those guys. You got the assistant gunner in the second pit over helping you shoot those targets down for you. I've seen officers that had to do that. There was this one officer could not shoot to save his life, and he stuck one of my assistant guys that helped me do marksmanship coaching over in the pit next to him, and he shot all of his targets for him. And but it happens, and I don't like it. I don't, because like I said, I was a victim of it. It kept me out of competitive shooting for several years because I thought it was all garbage, and I didn't want to be susceptible to, competitors don't know how to shoot because it's not tactical and it's going to harm you in a fight. And once you get past that and you learn, it's just about fundamentals, and competitive shooting will improve, not just prove that you have those fundamentals, but it'll also help you stay motivated to do it. It's like, I don't want to show up and look dumb.
Yeah, so American White Guy says they gave me the MK19. That's it.
Yeah, Mark 19. Yeah. Mark 19 definitely for the guy who can't qualify. Spread that love around. But yeah, which was funny because I was a marksmanship coach for so long, but I was always stuck. I was on the saw for a long time. And as a private too, an E2, which usually you're not put on the saw until you're an E4. But I was on that saw for a couple of years, and then I was given I had the 203 because nobody else wanted it, but I never shot the darn thing. I didn't know how to even really shoot the 203 very well. and it made shooting targets a pain in the ass with that 203 on there. And then when I got deployed, I was a machine gunner. So it was like, it was kind of crazy because then we go on a mission and there was a couple times where they're like, okay, we might need a precision shot, and they would have we had a designated marksman for the squad, and I was the designated marksman, and so they'd literally have to like give me a different gun and be like, okay, here, use it.
Yeah, so when you're deployed, you're either the guy throwing the bolt or you're the guy spending all his day fixing links. That's fun.
I was all over the place, man. But I love shooting that 240 a lot. I never ran on the Mod Deuce very much, but that 240 Bravo was pretty cool. And we came up with a couple of really cool SOPs when we were running in Baghdad because of usually you go out and you think, okay, I got to keep all my guns nice and lubricated and tip top shape and everything, and you go out. And it was by the end of the day, you come back and your gun was just caked in dust and just grit, and the thing would barely work. And so we ended up, we actually would strip everything down, pull all the grease off it, all the oil off, and we'd go out with a dry gun.
Run it dry, yeah.
Yeah, just because you could get through about 50 rounds. We tested it a bunch of times. You get through about 50 rounds before you'd start having malfunctions with zero whatsoever lubricant in it. And so I actually ran with this it was a Dawn soap bottle, the concentrated ones that was kind of small, and I filled that with CLP. And so things were starting to go down. I could lift that cover up and just grab that bottle and squeeze and just spray the gun down with CLP, throw the hatch down, and then go at it. And that was the way and actually I started that method with my saw, because the saw would not run unless you ran it like a liquid bath of CLP.
Right, just as wet could be.
Yeah, and then those back covers on those things were so loose. When I would wear I'd come out of like a
I can just see it now. Yeah, just completely caked with it.
Yeah, we come back from a fire exercise, and it looked like I was one of those like World War I pilots with just the space for the goggles, and then just oil just all across my face from the black spatter and the back splatter from those things, and it was pretty intense. I love that, but
it helps your complexion a lot. Lead and oil works well.
Yeah, but getting back to the competitive stuff is that. That's also a big part of the fun, is not having to shoot for your life. It's not like I don't have to buy a gun that makes defensive sense. I can buy a gun because it's fun to shoot. You can a Shadow 2. You're not going to rock a Shadow 2 as your daily carry, but a Shadow 2 is fun. You can add different plates to it and gussy it up, make it look all flashy and cool. It's fun to shoot. It weighs a ton. It shoots real soft, and it looks badass. And that there's that kind of stuff you can do with competitive shooting, because it doesn't matter. There's no.
Or you get yourself a CZ checkmate if you're one of those who even gets even further.
Oh yeah.
Or you're like you're like Tufu and you get one handed to you like a little cocksucker.
And like, I'm not gonna pull it out on stream, but mechanic, I've got that thing all kind of done up, and it's got these brass pieces on it, and it looks super cool, and it's a lot of fun, and and you miss out on that when it's so serious. And I got to life is dependent on this piece of equipment.
And I think another thing about it too is that, like, especially the tactical guys, the military guys who are coming back, and they've got this misconception about the competition guys, and I don't want to be standing next to them because they just stand in a line and shoot at a bunch of targets, and they're just going to be the first person to get shot or whatever the misconception is. For a lot of civilians, that's the closest thing you're going to get to an adrenaline dump that you're going to have during an actual firefight in training. Yeah. There's not a lot of training that exists out there that's going to get your heart racing, that's going to get your mental state in a position where you're trying to work ahead of where you currently are. which is a big thing. A lot of people, like, if you go to the range and you're just shooting paper, it's you, your gun, the paper. There's nothing more to it. There's nothing more complicated than that. But in competition, you're always working to the next target, which is the closest thing that anybody in a civilian aspect is going to get to without going to an actual defensive training, course where you maybe not have live fire, but you're dealing with cert guns and stuff like that in a training situation. That's competition is something that's accessible for pretty much anybody, and it gets you into a mindset that's outside of your normal mindset and gives you an adrenaline dump similar to that which you're going to have in a defensive situation.
Yeah, I think a lot of people associate like competitive shooting with like public speaking. They get so nervous about it. They get nerve-wracked about it. They'll do anything not to stand up and make ready because it's those nerves. It's your adrenaline's going to pump. Now, I don't get a lot of that because obvious if you see me on any of these streams, I have zero shame. I can really give us, I don't really care. So, watch me fail. I don't, that's a lot of fun to me. I still get my heart's still going to pump. I'm still excited. I still want to do really well. So I'm, even for me, somebody who it might be hard to get a rise out of. It's still, the closest thing I'm going to get, to having, an adrenaline dump like something like that.
Right.
And for other people, having, there's a few people I've heard, they call it dudes watching dudes. Right. You got dudes watching dudes. You're going to start thinking about it. You're like, oh man, what are they going to think about me if I make a fool of myself? Right. And so that can be really nerve wracking to people. And until but it's a lot like, a lot of military stuff. It's like, okay, but once you do it, you realize, okay, it's not a big deal. Everybody's screwing up. Even Robbie Latham, Mike Seeklander, those guys, they're winning world championships, and they still screw up.
Yeah.
They still
Jerry Michalak does not win every competition he goes to. He's fast as fuck, but he doesn't win every competition he goes to.
Yeah, exactly. Jerry Michalak, and he will lose with grace.
Absolutely.
And he'll still beat the hell out of himself for it. He'll still be like, yeah, I really should have hit that one. Da 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 da. And what people, once you get into it and you start to go like, yeah, man, you could be in last place and still have a conversation with Jerry Michalak because you both competed, right? Okay, I can go up to Jerry and be like, I was third from last in the Texas 3-gun thing, and I got to talk to Jerry for like 20 seconds. And he's like, I'm like, hey, Jerry, man, you did real good. And I was like, it's like you were so close to winning that one stage. And he's like, yeah, man, I missed the third target from the left. I thought I had it. And I was like, I think I just came off the target too quick. And I'm like, oh, that's fantastic. He's like, where'd you come in? And I was last on that stage. I completely blew it. And he's like, oh, man, what happened? You new to this or whatever? And I'm like, yeah, man, I haven't shot a gun in so long. I hardly got to train. He's like, yeah, that's tough, man. That was really cool, though. We all got to shoot that stage together. It was a bonding experience. And there was no judgment as far as like, you did bad. You get to you got made fun of for, shooting a no shoot 3 times because you're trying to hit a head box on something and you should have just walked away, and everybody's going to be like, what are you doing? And you're like, I don't know. And everybody's like, yeah, you don't know what you're doing.
Yeah, you got stuck in your shit.
And it's like, okay, well, and usually the follow-up question to that is, well, what are you going to do about it? And he's like, well, I'm going to practice that. Okay, cool. It was a lot of fun. Nobody got killed. Nobody shot. Everybody was safe. It was a lot of fun. And, I got to talk to Jerry Michalak for, a couple minutes and watch him shoot. And that was, watch him shoot in person. It's like, holy moly, what the hell's going on here? This is, is he even human anymore? And
yeah, he has offspring who are performing at his level already. So
yeah. And say, yeah. But then you talk to him and he's just like, oh yeah, you were there.
It's a normal guy. Too. Yeah, you shot it too. You saw it.
That's what most of these people want. It's not that did you do well. It's were you there? Did you do it?
Right. And I think that's a big other thing too. Is you look at professional sports or something like that, and you got a lot of guys who have egos and this and that. And when it comes to professional shooting sports, from everything that I've seen and what I understand of it so far from other people that I know who are into it and that sort of stuff. I have a buddy who actually is lead range officer at one of the big, three gun ranges down in Austin or in the Dallas Fort Worth area. So, I mean, he deals with these guys all the time. But he says it's absolutely crazy. None of these guys have egos. Everybody's out there just to have fun, promote the sport, be a good steward of gun ownership, and at the end of the day, they're just out there having a good time. Everybody will beat themselves up, and the guys at the bottom aren't expected to be the best. The guys at the top aren't expected to be the worst, obviously, but they do everything that they do for a reason. They're out there having fun, and the people who are on top are on top because they have the time to prepare. They're out there 3-4 days ahead of time, walking the course, doing this, doing that. The guys who are at the bottom, they don't have time to do that. They're out there that morning. They're like, okay, we got this. They're a lot of the guys, they're seeing the guy who's shooting it ahead of them is the first time they saw the course.
Yeah. And there's your range divas out there that are just like, don't talk to me. I'm can't talk to me. I'm doing my thing. And this target's 2 inches too far or too close. This is, they get all into it. And it's like, but most of the time, most people, if they have any issues that they're upset with, it's usually done in a good spirit, competitive spirit. That's, like, hey, a stage is messed up. I might be upset about something that's, screwed up, or maybe an RO or somebody made a bad call, and it's like, okay, I disagree with this, and there's steps you can take and this kind of thing, and I might be going home for the day, but in the end, if I can be the worst shooter of the day, I could be last place, but if I show that I put in my time, if I may not have had much time, but I put in what I could, I'm doing the best I can can still ask the number one shooter of the day, and they're going to answer my question. I'm going to say, hey, what am I doing wrong here? And most of the time they'll sit there and go, well, here's what you need to do. Here's where your focus should be. Here's what you did wrong. Or they might say, don't worry about that. That was not a part that you need to worry about. You're so far from that, needing that skill to be important, that just focus on your fundamentals. You're doing great. There's stuff like that.
You're worried about this over here. You need to be spend a little more time on your reload. Something as simple as like you're focused on getting that target, that 12 gauge shotgun slug downrange 50 yards and hit that target. But what you really needed to do was improve your time. So just hit that reload a little better.
Yeah, and and coming from somebody that makes holster gear, a lot of people get a little too obsessed about the gear, and a lot of the time, it's not gonna, you're talking about a one draw. You get a stage, you got one draw for most USPSA stuff. 3-gun gets a little wild into the weeds there, but you got one draw and maybe 3 or 4 reloads. Okay, so draw, we're going to give you a real reasonable draw, 2-second draw, okay, to first shot, and you got like a 1.5 seconds, 2-second reload. Okay, so let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, so you did 4 reloads and a draw. You got maybe 10 seconds. Okay, out of that 10 seconds, if I cut off a 1/4 second off of each one of those, I'm looking at only a 1.25 seconds improvement, right? So I'm maybe down to 8 seconds and 75. Okay, when really what I needed to do was, instead of having to use my conscious thought to move from point A to point B to shoot that second array, instead of walking, because I haven't done this enough and I want to be sure I'm safe, I needed to run. I needed to do my reload on the run and get over there. And that saved me 2 seconds. Without any different gear, without having to shoot any faster, without having to do anything else, I've improved my score by 2 seconds. Okay. And that's where a lot of the competitive shooting happens. So it's in between the shots that actually you're going to become faster.
Right.
Because even top level guys, most of the time they're only doing, 1.5 seconds draw, 1.5 seconds reload. probably most of the time, because they want to be safe. They're making sure they're taking their time. They don't want to fumble anything, but they're running to each position. They're getting in and out of position. Their exits are immaculate. You watch Ben Stager and exit a position, he's grunting and coming out every time he starts to sprint down to the other side of the range, and he's knows how to control his body. There's a lot of athleticism type things that even fat body people can do, because it's not like we're running a quarter mile. We're going 20 feet, but you have to do it efficiently.
Right. It's you know, for the bigger guys, it's less about the athleticism to do it. It's more about controlling your breath after the fact.
Yeah, and you watch, but I mean, I was. Oh,
a little bit of cutout. There you go. Got you back.
Yeah. And I lost my hold on.
No, not a problem. But yeah, it comes down to a lot of. There you go. There you're back. You got a webcam and a camera.
Yeah.
So,
all right, you got me.
We got you. Yeah, I mean, it does. It comes down to just the training of it, doing it over and over again.
Can you hear me?
Yep, I can hear you. I can hear you.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you. I can hear you.
Hello.
Now you're going down.
Okay.
You're going down.
Switch underneath my desk.
This is the remix version. We will get him back here 1 second. We just want to start this over here.
There we go.
All right, I am back with Scott. Your audio seems to be still messed up.
Uh-oh. The audio. Okay, can you hear me now?
We can hear you. You're sounding a little bit better. How you know? Can you hear me?
I can hear you great. I don't know why I sound weird.
Yeah, you're glitching pretty harshly.
Disappointing.
It sounds like you're drunk, but that's okay. You know, I think, you know, to that point, I mean, we've been going for an hour and 45 minutes. We've covered quite a few topics. You know, as opposed to trying to figure out all the little issues here and there, we're at the point where, you know, if we gotta cut it, we can cut it. It's not a big deal. I think we've lost your audio altogether now. But
okay, here we go.
Here we go.
Hello?
Yep, we can hear you. We got some glitch. We're still there, but we can do a little bit of an outro together and work through this.
Yeah, well, say what I wanted to say.
Yep. So, you know, definitely, you know, in the future, if you want to come back on, we can have some more conversation about competition shooting in the future. You know, I think this has been a great episode. For anybody who's not sure of what Scott does, Scott is one of the fine employees / owners of PrecisionHolsters.com. He puts out some incredible holsters. You know, not from my personal experience, from what I've seen, from what I've heard. I will have one soon, but as of right now, I don't. So I'm taking it on word. I'm taking it on pictures I've seen. I can say the quality is top notch from what I've seen, and nothing short of phenomenal. So if you guys are looking for holsters out there, and you're looking for something that's going to be quality, don't skip on these guys. They're up there with the best of them. I don't think that there's any reason that they shouldn't be in the running. Just know what you're looking for. Talk to people, get a feel for what you want. A hybrid holster may not be for everybody. An appendix holster may not be for everybody. It's kind of to each their own type of thing. So if you know what you're looking for and they kind of fit the mold, I definitely say they're worth a shot. The quality looks phenomenal. I've got nothing bad to say about it from somebody who understands leather processing. I can tell you they do everything to make these things as good as possible. So,
Thank you.
Yeah. So,
Am I?
you're still kind of cutting a little bit, but we can hear you.
I've angered the.
You talked about your expensive microphone to your cheap microphone, and she didn't like it.
Yeah. That's what happened.
So that's what we'll blame it on. Again, I'd like to say thanks for spending this time with us. We appreciate it. We just want to have a real good time, and I think this has been a great conversation. So for everybody who has spent some time with us, thank you very much. Don't forget to check out precisionholsters.com. And like I've always said, I'm never going to monetize this stream. I'm never going to ask for super chats. I'm never going to ask for anything like that. If you want something, cool, head on over to boogbrand.com, pick out something, buy it that way. That's the best way you can support this stream. I'm going to keep doing it, regardless of what we make for money. And, like I said earlier too, head on over to precisionholsters.com, check out what they got, check out what they're offering, and if they don't have something that you want, push on them, especially if it's a Canic, because some of us really want a fucking Canic holster.
Yeah. Keep it short, and you guys have me back anytime, man. I'm just, enjoyed talking with you.
Yeah, no, it was a good time. I appreciate it. And on that note, we'll end the stream for tonight, guys. You have a good one, and stay safe this weekend. Everybody enjoy the weather. It's supposed to be almost halfway freezing in the Midwest, so fuck everybody who's got decent weather. All right, good night, everybody.